The first speech is from a guy called Phaedrus, and his fundamental point is how love is a god, and he looks at love quite actionably, of like, in the world we live in, it's a motivator. So how he used the example of loads of men going to war, and they do that because of love for their country, for their community, for the family. And this is what's referred to as a silver soul argument. So Plato often talks about three souls. One, the bronze being the animal, the silver. Can I remember this? I think the gold was something like divine. I guess the silver is. Oh yeah, I think the silver is the human, and then the gold's the divine. So yeah, that's like a very silver soul argument. And then the next speech is from Pausanias, and he agrees with Phaedrus that love is a god, and he introduces this, how love plays on the other emotions and how it basically connects them and finds harmony with all these conflicting emotions inside of us. It's the one that makes the dissonant elements of our psyche and unifies them, and he improves on Phaedrus' speech, converting it from the love of one's actions to the love of one's soul. Next we've got Eryximachus, and this guy was a doctor, so he sees love in a very different way. He thinks love was the origin of medicine, and it improves health, and it kind of builds on the previous speech of reconciling disharmonious elements of our body, so very kind of sort of physiologically, and gluing together these dissonant parts of the soul. I've got a quote here that he says, "There are in the human body these two kinds of love. So too in the body, the good and healthy elements are to be indulged, and the bad one into the other." Let me repeat that. Or the convert into one or the other. Harmony is the goal. Harmony is an agreement. So it's this sort of comparison to health, and to, I think he also references food and medicine quite a lot. Then we've got Aristophanes, which he's a personal favourite of mine. He comes into the dinner party like very drunk, and he's a lot more abstract in his speech. So he says, in the beginning of existence, humans used to have 2 heads, 4 arms, and 4 legs, and they used to cartwheel about the world, cartwheel to travel, and they were sublimely happy, constantly joined in this sexual connection. But then they became arrogant and they wanted to become gods, and therefore Zeus threw a thunderbolt down and split humans in half. So then that split us from this one whole being into 2, the male and the female. And therefore the human condition is always one of incompletion. So he again takes this sort of physical silver soul approach to love. And he also says, if we don't make the appropriate sacrifices to the gods, then they'll split us in half again. So then we'll just be 1 leg, 1 arm, and half a head. And we'll have to find 3 people to have sex with. And then we've got Agathon, who takes more of an Aristotle approach, how love is a source of virtue, and he combines it with stuff like wisdom. So you'd say, like, you love what you do, you love your craft. Temperance, which is like how it's like the mix between desire and self-control. And then other virtues he names, like courage and justice and things like that. So it's kind of like it makes a virtuous characteristic. Is the source of the virtuous characteristic. And then we've got Socrates, who is the smartest out of all of them, and he disagrees with what the common theme of love is a god. And he says, because gods are perfect and love still has yearning in it, yearning for beauty and completion, and instead it mediates between the gods and men. So that's what connects humans, to the gods. Love is a spirit that connects heaven and earth. Love is a union of souls, an attempt to create something permanent amongst the change of human life. Love is the yearning for eternity, the long for immortality. So it's like, I think the immortality thing's quite important. Of, you don't want it to stop. You don't want this dance to ever stop. You can keep going forever. And then the last one is by Alcibiades. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. Who storms in drunk. Oh no. He doesn't give a speech. I think he tries to give a speech, and I think he's too drunk. And he storms in. He tells Socrates that he loves him. Socrates says no, because Alcibiades has a beautiful body but an ugly soul. Ooh. And he's like, I can't believe you guys are all sober. Let's get drunk. And then Socrates basically spends a lot of time trying to disagree with people and bring them up to this level of purity and divinity. And so then the whole room the whole room has a choice. Do they go to this animalistic hedonism, or do they stick to Socrates' purity? And then everyone switches to and then everyone basically starts drinking. And the irony is how Socrates drinks heavier than everyone. So it kind of ends on like a tragic note. Of I guess that last bit's an interesting point about human nature. But yeah, out of what I've said, what sort of points do you agree with most? And yeah, what's your thoughts?
Well, firstly, what is worse to have said to you than you have you have a beautiful body but an ugly soul? Oof, that's got to kill. That's got to kill at this level. But now, on a serious point, so yeah, I like it. I think the one that resonated most with me is probably the Socrates point, because I was agreeing along the lines of, love being a divine being in a way, or being a god, or it could be personified in that way. But then when he said that it has imperfections to it and gods don't, making it not a god, I'd also agree with that. And what I was thinking while you were talking before we got to Socrates was that, to me, love is the spirit that possesses you when you do the right thing. For people, for yourself, for your environment, for your mission in life. You can do it out of love. You can do it through that spirit. And Socrates' point that it connects you to the gods and brings heaven to earth, I think, is very true. If you do something out of love, it is fundamentally good, because you can't do something evil out of love. Maybe you feel like you're doing it out of love, but it's evil. It's fundamentally the opposite of love. Whereas if you can live your whole life through love, you can flirt with the world, you can have good intentions in your actions, you can do the best for people around you, including yourself, and look after your environment and look after your community, then you are possessed by the spirit of love, and you are connecting to the divine and the transcendental, and bringing forth heaven onto the earthly plane. I think that's the best way of thinking about it. What do you think?
I think all of them have a bit of truth in them, and I think I like Eric Simicus's point about it being like a healing ability, that like how kind of laughter is the best medicine, along those lines of how love can really kind of make things better. And I think the common theme of it making something dissonant harmonious is very true. I connected with Euryximachus's quite a lot, and Socrates, because I mean he's always the most rational in all of Plato's dialogues, so it kind of makes all the reader agree with him. whatever. But I like the Aristophanes' experimental thoughts, which would kind of explain soulmates. And I mean, it's true about how we always have this craving. I don't think he probably hasn't got it exactly right with human beings used to be just male and female combined, but it is the source of human suffering, is craving. So we're just trying to be complete always.
Well, life contains a lot of suffering, right? And a good degree of it is unnecessary or outside of your control or inflicted upon you by forces outside of you. But what's the antidote to that? Well, you get to love. You get to find what you love doing. You get to find people you love. You get to create a connection with yourself and cultivate self-love and love your environment. And that's the counterweight to all the pain in the world and all the pain you'll experience. You get to do things out of love. You get to create love. If you believe in it and if you have faith in it and if you try and do the right thing. And maybe that's the best argument we've got for why the suffering of life is worth enduring, and why the meaninglessness and the nihilism that one can invest in can be broken down. Because name something more meaningful than the experience of being in love with something, with someone, with some activity. It's all encompassing. It transforms your whole reality. So that's why heaven and earth are mental states. And maybe the state of suffering brings hell to earth, but on the flip side of that, pursuing love in all its forms brings heaven to earth.
I think Socrates is right how love isn't a god. They refer to it constantly in Symposium as Euros, who I think is a Greek god. It's one of the Greek gods. And that's because I think it's like a category. It's something as powerful as a god, but it's in its own category, I think. I don't think you could see it sense as like a form of a god, but one of those like very top kind of themes of human experience. They're kind of the most highest senses that you get within you when you're doing something, and I think they're two different things, but it's similar in how they affect you and the world around you. Because it's also like the kind of Greek, how they put everything into gods, like how Nike is the god of victory, and all these different things that they put together. I think love kind of transcends how they normally put an emotion and then attach it to a god. I think love's a bit greater than that, and it's kind of its own thing in that way.